And welcome to the Charron Zone. I am here with my main man, my former and hopefully future guitar player, Mr. Rhett Gordon, who I affectionately have many nicknames for, but one of them is Nash Gordon. What's up, Rhett?
What's going on, Big TC? How you doing, buddy?
Great, great, great. So the topic for today on the Charron Zone is, should I move to Nashville? And this means, should the viewer move to Nashville? And I thought it would be perfect to talk to you. So for everybody listening and watching, Rhett was down here in you're living in Boca, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Boca Raton, Florida, and he started playing guitar with me a few years ago and played with me for a couple of years, a bunch of shows. And then he decided to make the big move to Nashville, Tennessee. So without further ado, I'd like to just basically pick your brain for everybody out there listening and watching.
Yeah, man.
And just, basically, if you want to just kind of maybe just tell a little bit of your backstory and your journey to finally get to Nashville.
Oh man, it's been a long one. I'm kind of doing it backwards in my later years here, but grew up in Southeast Texas, man, just being immersed, and my dad turned me on to blues and just got bit by the guitar bug young. I had a cousin who went on to go play with Mark Chestnut and Tracy Byrd in the 90s, and so I got to be around some of that at a young age, and was, it's country, blues, rock, everything. I was enamored by Van Halen in the 80s, as most guitar players were. And, but I still love the Eagles and all of that stuff. So started playing around 12, did not make it into Berklee College of Music. Pretty funny story, but lo and behold, ended up in South Florida, man. And as you well know, it's a unique music scene there, because right where we were, you're in between three major cities that are within driving distance you can gig at, in a major tourist traffic area. And you could play 7 nights a week if you wanted to. And so I was very blessed to play with some really great players over the years. And I still worked, had a family, but there was a 9-year span where I had booked 100 to 130 shows a year, and so I paid my dues down there and played in every room from the Keys up to West Palm and other places. And then, of course, you and I got to do some fun shows together. And I think the first show I did with you was like the week before COVID hit. We did that festival down in Miami.
Carnival.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, it's really interesting right now where I am right now. So I moved to Deerfield Beach. I'm right next to the pier. So we played a festival. The first time I think that you were the sole guitar player on one of my gigs. That festival is literally happening right now, like 2 blocks over, and I can hear the bands. They must be on break right now, but that same festival is happening. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, you can hear it from here. So
another note on that note, Maggie Baugh, who was the headliner for that show that we played, she posted something the other day about the Gypsy Vodka guys who are from Michigan. And when I was on tour last summer in Michigan, we got to tour their distillery. And so she's doing I think a deal with them or something. She was mentioning their company. And so it's man, what a small world. And, I think she grew up down there and whatnot, and is down in Florida touring right now. So I wonder if she's playing that festival again.
I don't think she's playing this one, because I went for a run last night, and they had a poster of all the lineup. But it's a small world. It's very interesting. Maggie, I played up here at Spanish River Park at a festival for like people with disabilities, and played with Maggie. You know, she went on before me, and she was was probably like 15 years old or something. She was really young and really talented. And then she's another person who moved to Nashville and is doing well. So it's very
Killing it.
interesting. You know, it's very interesting. This whole thing, the whole process of moving to Nashville. And so to kind of just jump back into your story. So you were, you know, when you started working with me, playing with me, you know, you're a professional, you know, you had your career going, and then you would play with different bands and different artists on the side. And you're over 21, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you're a little bit, you know, you're in that, in a, you know, in that age range. So, so yeah, I just want to like, so what prompted you to move to Nashville, basically? So to set the scene, Flash Gordon, Nash Gordon. Well, back then it was Flash Gordon, right? You're living in Boca. You have a beautiful wife, a beautiful home, a really great job / career going, and you're
Yep.
playing with really awesome artists on the side, and doing a bunch of gigs with me and other people. And so, okay, so paint the picture.
So the transition happened like this. Um, yeah, I've been very blessed. Have an amazing wife, and our son went to college summer of 23.
Mhm.
And right about that same time, we got our insurance renewal for homeowners insurance, and it's gotten kind of bananas, to be
Oh,
honest with you.
okay.
And been blessed to have great corporate career for a long time. Worked in the automotive tech space with a company, had a huge opportunity and work with some really great leadership, and got to I do some brand development and software stuff as well on the side. And you know, that's kind of what I did professionally in addition to playing music. And so we were empty nesters for the first time, and we got to thinking, well, I don't really need all of this anymore, and our son is off and settled and happy. Wanted to make sure he was in a good spot and that he was comfortable with his path, and so that worked out. And then I kind of jokingly threw out Nashville because I had reconnected with some buddies of mine that have been in town for 10 plus years, that have been here making a living playing music. And so I had reached out to them and reconnected and found out a little bit about how it worked. And so for that, I will be forever indebted to two specific people. One guy's name is Brendan Bowe, who all he does is play Broadway and is starting to write. I'm actually working on some original music with him. And another buddy of mine, Chris Condon. Both of these guys are from South Florida as well. So that's how I knew them. I knew Chris from back in the club days. And when I tell you he's one of the baddest MFers there are on the guitar, he's incredible. He's incredible. And he's a full-time session guy here. He was Billy Ray Cyrus's music director for a while, still kind of is to some degree. And dude, those two guys have been so rock solid, and I'll just be forever indebted to all the guidance and wisdom they've provided me.
That's so important. Having someone or someone's to that are already there to kind of give you some kind of guidance and insight, because it can be overwhelming and intimidating. I moved to Nashville full time for a couple of years in 2009, and the only person that I knew in Nashville was Rich Redmond, the drummer for Jason Aldean. And you know, but that was just knowing one person. And obviously, like, you had people that were doing it there, you know, so they knew the ropes. And for me, having Rich to bounce stuff off of and go to the movies and talk to him and pick his brain was invaluable. So
Yeah.
that's one really important thing. So let me just jump right to you know, the question is, should someone move to Nashville, right? Someone who's a musician, I guess we'll just put it, whether they're an artist or a side person, a player. I mean, obviously, you're mostly at this point a player. So, what would you tell them? And this is kind of a loaded question because the answer is it depends.
It
Right?
definitely does depend. You need to understand where you might potentially fit in the food chain. And
Like
there is
where you're
100,
aim for.
right. Yeah, because you can make a very good living just playing on Broadway. You know, some people, it depends on if you're a singer songwriter. It depends on if you're an audio engineer, you know, or are you a touring pro? Is that what you aspire to be? Or do you want to try to play sessions? You know, there's more concentrated music industry in Nashville than I think any other city in the world at this point, right? It's it's just unbelievable. It's 24/7, 7 days a week here, and it's amazing. Having said that, the standards are so much higher here than they are in any other city. You know, in South Florida, there's great musicians, but there aren't that many of them. And that's the way it is in most every other city around the country. If you think about the baddest players in town in a region, almost everybody is like that here. And
Yes.
it only goes up from there. You know, I mean,
That's why, sorry to jump in, but that's why it can be very, I'm sure people that are listening or watching that are considering moving to Nashville, it can be very intimidating before you even get there. But just speaking from my experience, when I moved there, it was incredibly intimidating because just to your point, you go out and you do stuff or you see you go to venues and see people perform and everybody is better than you. It's just if you think
everybody.
you're a good shot, go to Nashville and you'll get knocked on your butt, and you will second guess everything about your musicianship. At least I did, and I was pretty green at that point, which kind of leads me back to Rich Redmond. I just watched, he has this old documentary thing that he did years ago. And
is it the one where he has the Honda Element?
Yes.
I love that video, man.
I have my Honda Element. So, and I think Rich has had at least two Elements. But one of the things that stuck with me, and this was just the other day, me watching it, he said, Nashville is not a place to cut your teeth. You need to be the biggest, baddest mofo in your town, work your way up to that, then move to Nashville. What do you think of that?
There's a lot of truth to that. I don't think I was that in South Florida for sure. I mean, man, look at guys like Nelson and, you know, some of those players around there, unbelievable.
That's exactly my point, because I was not either at all.
Yeah.
You know, I moved there and then I moved to Nashville and then I started like touring with a guitar, you know, solo acoustic, and making a living, which is another thing that I want to talk about, making a living just playing music or also having a job. But I moved to Nashville. I was there. I realized, number one, it's extremely difficult to make a living playing music in Nashville, especially when you're new. And if you're going to try to make a living playing music in Nashville and you're not going to dedicate 1,000,000% to being a Broadway player, you're not going to make a living playing music in Nashville. So forget that idea. So I realized that, and then I started basically traveling around to my markets, Key West, the Keys, South Florida, and up to New England, so I could make a living playing 250 solo acoustic gigs a year.
Which is tiring.
It's brutal, and I definitely want to talk to you about that because that's a big topic. Whether or not you should just play music for a living and not have a side job or not have a main job like you did and then play music on the side. And after all of my 16 years of experience, if I had to do it over again, I would not have done those 7, 8, 9 years of just playing music and making a living because it was brutal.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, back in the early 2000s into the 2000 teens, there was a 10-year run there where in South Florida, I had a full-time corporate day gig and I played 100+ shows a year, just grinding there in the clubs in South Florida, and made great side money doing it. But the one thing it did give me is stage time, and there is no substitute for that. In addition to playing the gigs, in most of those situations, I was the guy booking the gigs, dealing with the venue management or the agents, the talent agencies that were booking the gigs. I was responsible for getting all the guys paid. I had a corporation, basically running an entertainment production company. I did all the marketing. As you know, I do graphic design and like flyer work and things like that as well. And so, to your point, do you want to solely rely on your musicianship skills? In most cases, I would say no. Until you get up to a pro touring level situation or a full-time Broadway situation. My buddy Brendan, that's all he does is play Broadway, and he makes a pretty damn good living doing it. But that guy works his ass off.
Yeah, I have a couple of friends that my one friend Nathan Stoops was doing that for a few years. And just while we're on the subject, what are Broadway musicians making for money?
Man, it is a very vastly ranging scenario.
Yeah.
Most of the clubs have small base pay, and then the majority of your income comes from tips.
Yeah.
And like in South Florida, you go play somewhere and it's like 45 minutes on, 15-minute break, 45 minutes on, 15-minute break, for a 4-hour stretch. On Broadway, it is 4 hours nonstop. There are occasions where the singer will say, "Hey, you guys take 10 minutes. I'll do 3 or 4 songs acoustic." And then, bam, you're right back up. But for the most part, it is 4 hours nonstop. So, which gets into physical health and mental clarity, and not to mention the amount of material you're expected to know here.
Yes.
You're not safe with your regular 60 song library or catalog that we do if you're in a rock cover band in South Florida or whatever kind of band you're in. It's massive, and you got to be able to read charts on the fly. I just played night before last on Broadway, and 1 minute you're doing Merle Haggard, the next minute you're doing Elton John. I've played the theme song from SpongeBob SquarePants on the fly, or Guns N' Roses. Like, you just have to be super well versed and ready. And I'm talking, hey, it's in the key, shuffle in the key of, A flat. You take
C
the second
plus.
solo, boom, a 1-6-4-5. And if someone, if you're a musician and you don't know how to read number charts, do not move to Nashville. I'll tell you that right now.
That's a massive piece of advice.
Yeah.
Massive. Yes.
And I didn't even know it, but when I was in junior college at Lee College in Baytown, Texas, and I took a folk and country ensemble class, and the director, or the guy that ran the class, we spent the first 2 weeks learning how to read number charts. I'm like, okay, and it made pretty quick sense to me. And I'm not I wouldn't say I'm a very big theory head type of person, but learning how to read number charts at a young age was probably one of the best things I ever did. In addition to ear training, I took a music theory class my senior year of high school, and it was me and a French horn player from the high school band with the band director. And all we did was study intervals and the relationships of notes and chords, and learning how to hear chord changes. And so I was able to develop my ear pretty young and start learning and hearing changes. So being able to play stuff on the fly and off of charts is an absolute must-have skill here in Nashville.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. I don't know if if you've never been to Nashville and you don't know the scene, then you don't know this stuff. And it's exactly what you're saying, and it's very intense. God forbid someone were to move to, and this is going to lead to my next question. God forbid somebody would actually spend the money and the time and leave their hometown, move all the way to Nashville and not know any of this stuff, and go to jump in on a gig on Broadway, and they're like, okay, hey, play the B-side from Rick Springfield's 1978 record, and they're lost. And then someone's like, this is exactly what's going to happen. If you're playing guitar or bass or something on Broadway, somebody's going to ask for something outrageous. A tourist will ask for some crazy song, and the band leader will look at you. They'll be like, hey, it's this song. And you'll be like, I don't know it. And they'll be like, it's 145, 154. And if you don't know what that means, you're never working in Broadway again.
It probably happened to me 6 times night before last. Songs I'd never played before.
Yeah.
We played some Stoney LaRue song, and it came together great. But that's, you got to be able to know how to play and understand number charts, because you'll be in the middle of the song and whoever's directing that song will be like, and you better go to that chord. You got to know what it is, and so, or if you get a nod, you got to be ready. If you're a fiddle, steel, piano, or lead guitar, you got to be able to improvise and take a solo on a song you've never played before, and make it sound halfway decent, and that's one thing I will say. While you are expected to know a ton of material, there is flexibility, and most of the band leaders here understand, hey, this guy's never played, some of these guys have never played the song before. Let's just try to keep the structure solid. Don't play anything inappropriate. In other words, if we're playing a traditional country shuffle, don't give me a Guns N' Roses guitar solo.
Right.
If I throw you a solo. So it's important to know and be respectful when you are improvising in a live situation, and, just know your place and be respectful of the music. And in most cases, you'll be fine.
So definitely great points. So going back to how much money people make on Broadway, and then I want to ask another question. Would you say the average would be like 150 to 250?
Close. I mean, man, it depends on the day. It depends on so many factors and what else is going on in town. There's conference season, there's concerts downtown on any given night. You can get mobbed and make, I have buddies that have made $1,000 a man in a shift before.
Yep.
And, and then there's the lower end of that as well. So it's really hard to say what can you expect consistently. The key is to work consistently
And then it
and
is out.
and understand that, hey, you may make $100 one night on a shift and you may make $500-600. It just depends. I give you a funny story. I got called to sub a gig at Tin Roof on Broadway one night, and I had no idea what was going on. And the gig was a 10 to close shift. So I had to get down. Actually, this one that night was scheduled to start at 9:30. I'm not much of a TV or sports person, so I didn't have any idea what was going on. So I get down and I'm coming into downtown, and I got into the parking garage where I park fine. But as soon as I walked out on 4th Ave and I looked, Broadway was closed down and there was people a block deep on the side streets, and Broadway was as thick as you could imagine with people. I'm like, what in the hell's going on here? So it just so happened to be that Vanderbilt had just beat Alabama, and that was the night they carried the goalpost down Broadway. So that on nights like that, you're going to make insane, good money per gig or
Yeah.
shift, as they say. So, man, it just depends. But I will say this, even on a slow day, there's no, it's like a country version of the Sunset Strip in the 80s. You know what I mean? It's phenomenal. The energy down on Broadway is amazing, and the talent and skill is otherworldly,
Yep.
and it's pretty awesome.
Perfect transition. So, say you have someone who wants to move from Kansas City or any other town but Nashville. They're a musician, they're a guitar player, and they call you, Nash Gordon. We love your story. We heard about it on the Charron Zone. And here's the deal, man. I am thinking about moving to Nashville, Tennessee to be a musician. What do you tell them? And I have a couple of maybe points. Like, what do you tell them? What do you tell them to do? And do you tell them to plan to get a job while they're there when they first get there? Do you tell them to gather all the charts for all the songs? How many songs are you talking? Do you tell them to stay where they are and work on X, Y, and Z before? So just let me know come up with a scenario of someone moving.
So, I would say it would depend on, are you single? Are you married? Are you married with kids? What scenario are we talking? Because there's different strategies I would suggest depending on your scenario. Generally, we're talking about someone who's single in their 20s or 30s, maybe.
Let's go with that.
So in that scenario, I would say before you move here, come visit 2 or 3 different times. All right.
Words right out of my brain.
And I'd be happy to show you around town and, give you whatever experience I can, and just to kind of pay it forward, because I was so blessed to have people do that for me. You introduced me to somebody who, took a coffee meeting with me and was super generous with their time. And that is the beauty about Nashville. Let me just real quick speak on this. Is in South Florida and other markets, it's super, super competitive as far as, hey man, that's my gig, or, don't. And here, there's so many transient scenarios where people are in and out of town from road gigs and touring, scenarios and things like that. And there's resources that we have here as working musicians that say, hey, I need a lead player at second fiddle on Thursday, 6 to 10. Boom. Okay, I'm good. Okay, great. So on any given night you go play downtown, you're going to end up on stages a lot of times with people you've never even talked to before. You don't know. And that's where having your game together is so important.
1,000,000%. And talking to your point about, there is a real community in Nashville that is absolutely incredible, that is nowhere I've ever lived. Like you were saying, to me, in South Florida and in New England and everywhere I've played, people are just kind of in their own corners. And Nashville, obviously not everybody, but the majority of people, especially the people that are really doing the thing, everybody really helps each other. And they're not, for the most part, doing it in self-interest. There's a real community in the music business in Nashville, and that is the reason why I love it so much.
It's amazing. And we'll just take Broadway again as kind of this laboratory, if you will. There are 70, maybe 80 plus stages within a 3-block radius now that go from 10 in the morning till 2 at night. So inevitably, people are going to get double booked. People are going to get sick. People get called to go do a road gig and they need a sub. And so it is a tight knit community that, you're always moving and shaking and needing to work yourself in. And that's why you got to be ready, and it is challenging. I mean, even, I'm a pretty seasoned player, been playing guitar for a long time, and it is challenging. But if you're willing to do the work and you're disciplined, it's absolutely achievable. I mean, but it's disheartening also when you go down to Roberts on a Wednesday or Thursday night and you see 21, 22-year-old Luke McQuarrie playing Devil Went Down to Georgia on a Telecaster and just burning the damn frets off the guitar. But it's inspiring. It's exciting.
Yes, I was just going to say that. And you don't have to. I definitely found there's 2 ways to look at it too. Like, you don't have to be, what's his name, Brent Mason, right? You have to kind of find your strength and work to your strength and find your niche. So on one hand, don't be intimidated, because you don't have to be the greatest player, far from it. You just have to be good enough. But on the other hand, and I think what you're saying is, do not come to town unprepared. And the rest of the world of music is the farm team, is the AA baseball league. When you get to Nashville and you want to play on Broadway, that is, as far as like what is required of you and the preparation that you have to have going into it before you even step on the damn road, that's the NFL, that's the major leagues. Like, you need to be prepared like crazy before you even get to town. So I would say, definitely go and visit, connect with people. It's all about people. Everything.
So important.
It's all about people. It's all about, if you know 1 or 2 people before you even go, if you're seeing this or watching this and us, man, you gotta like go hang out with people, go downtown, watch different bands, go up to people, introduce yourself. And then I would say find out how many songs, which songs you need to know to work. So I'm living in Kansas, and I'm playing in my bands and stuff like that, and I'm thinking about moving to Nashville, I'm gonna go to Nashville. I'm gonna start meeting people. I'm gonna find out all the songs that I need to start learning. I'm gonna get the charts to those songs or chart them myself, and I'm gonna woodshed like crazy before I even think about remotely moving there. And I would keep going and visiting every whatever, once a month. So if I were to give somebody advice and they're like, I definitely want to move to Nashville, I would say make a 6-month or a 1-year plan and start going. If it's a 1-year plan, I'm going to move in 1 year. I'm going to visit every couple months and I'm going to find out all that stuff. I'm going to work my butt off so that when I get there, I can hit the ground running, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that prep work was invaluable to me. And listen, you never stop. It never stops, man, because just like my gig the other night, there's 10 or 12 songs that we played that I've either never played before or I haven't played in 20 years and I need to go back and relearn in order to be able to really nail it. You know what I mean? And so you just never stop learning here. And as my buddy Chris said, he's like, you're going to just get better by osmosis. Just being here. If you want to work, you have to never stop studying.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy is one of the most educated guitar players and experienced guys I know. And he's just so laser focused on his craft. And that's why he's one of the best in town. So.
Well, I think what we're saying to recap, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're thinking about moving to Nashville, right? The bad news is everybody's better than you, and it's intimidating, and it's really hard to, if not impossible, to make money when you first get there. But the great thing is, what we're saying is, come up with a plan. You know what I mean? Obviously, whoever's watching, listening, they know where they are as far as their abilities. And so know where you are. If you're in whatever, you live in Maryland and you're playing with your bands, you know, that's what I would say. I would say make a plan, go to Nashville, find out the list of songs. How many songs would you say is the Nashville standards?
Oh man,
500, 800, 1,000.
it depends on where you play, right? Because if you're playing at Kid Rock's place, you're going to play a lot more rock, you know. But if you're playing at the Stage or Second Fiddle, you're going to play a mix of that and more traditional country. It depends on the artist you're playing with too.
But we're talking hundreds of songs.
Hundreds hundreds of
Yeah.
songs.
So that's what I would do. That's what I would tell someone to do. While they're still in their hometown, you know, go to town, take people out for a beer, you know, meet as many people as you can, keep in touch with them, just get their advice and make sure you find out, you know, the basics of the songs that you would be expected to play, chart the shit out of them, and do all that work before you move to Nashville. And then once you finally move there, man, you're going to hit the ground running. There's going to be a lot more that you need to adjust to. But as opposed to moving there and then trying to figure out like, oh, I didn't know that, you know, you could only play on Broadway to make money. I didn't know that, you know, it wasn't enough to know the 40 songs that I was playing in my top 40 cover band back in Iowa. Oh, I need to know another 800 songs. Geez, I better get to work. Meanwhile, you're sitting in Nashville and you've got to pay your rent. You're screwed.
You better go get a job.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, on that topic, I mean, like I said earlier, if I had known what I know now, I probably would have had a side job way back in the day instead of just playing music for a living, because it's so easy to get burnt out. I got so burnt out so many times. But having said all that, if you have a plan and you can do all the heavy lifting before you get there, and you can meet people before you get there, then you're gonna create your own weather. You're gonna get there. You're already gonna know people. You're gonna know the lay of the land a bit. You're gonna know which venues, which circuits on Broadway you're gonna target. You know, whether it's the rock room, the more rock rooms, or the more you know, there's certain rooms that are more like 90s country, right? Like old school kind of country. So you're gonna, you know, if you know all those things in advance and you have time to prepare, learn the Nashville number system, then man, you can really do well and jump right in, because once you get called for one gig, you know, and you jump in and you do a good job, then it can just snowball from there, and you can be working all the time.
Yeah, one rule of thumb I've tried to set for myself is to every gig I go play is to try to connect with 3 new people, whether they're a songwriter or a sideman or whatever. Just start building your network of people that can refer you. You know, most of the work I've gotten has been from other musicians that have referred me or that I've ended up on a stage with or whatever.
Yeah.
So that networking piece, and man, when I tell you, you were talking about it a minute ago, you don't have to be the Brent Mason in town, but you damn sure have to be a good hang, and you got to know how to get along with people, be respectful of people's time, be punctual. Do not
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
be punctual. Funny story. It was so embarrassing. I first got to town, and my buddy Brendan hired me for a gig, and he's like 10 to 2, and I didn't double check. There was no AM or PM on the text. There was just a P at the end of the 2. And coming from South Florida and just any other place, you're thinking, who in the hell plays a gig at 10 o'clock in the morning? Well, every place on Broadway has
my friends play, some of them are from South Florida. They play every single morning of the week at Tootsie's at 10 a.m., 10:30.
Yep. And so I made a rookie mistake and missed the gig. It was awful. I was mortified because I'm super anal about punctuality and trying to be as pro as possible.
Yep.
And thank God he was very gracious to me. And it's Nashville. There's a guitar player within 20 feet, you know. And
you just
hey buddy, I think the guy that was getting, or you know, was, I don't know. There's just always somebody around. But he filled the gig just like that, and you know, the show went on. But yeah, that was probably my most embarrassing Nashville moment so far. And listen, you're gonna have them. Everybody falls on their face. You're gonna get on stage, a song's gonna get called. You're not gonna know it, but you're gonna be expected to try to follow along and fit in. And you know, there's just so much where that experience and preparation comes into play.
Yeah, I think the moral of the story is be over prepared. Take your time, come up with a plan, and execute the plan, and then, you know, you can be part of the greatest music community the world has ever seen. Nothing will ever compare or match Nashville, Tennessee. So, having said all that, thank you for your time. Thank you for your advice. Anybody listening or watching, contact us. You know, if you have any questions, comments down below, we'll answer all of them. If you have any questions that you want me or us to do another podcast / video on, we can do that topic. Throw it in the comments. Please share this, subscribe, do all of that stuff. It really helps. And let everybody know where they can find Mr. Nash Gordon on the interwebs.
Man, I'm not so great at all the interweb stuff, but you can hit me up on my Instagram. It's Rhett Gordon Music. Um, I post show photography and stuff from the gigs I do, and so on and so forth. And yeah, man, in addition to Broadway, a lot of stuff I've done. Just real quick, if I can maybe try to provide some insight to people, there's a ton of opportunity to play here. And one thing that I didn't really have too much opportunity to do back home is backing up songwriters. So in Nashville, there's writers rounds, every night, every day. And I've really enjoyed connecting because I enjoy the creative process of music. I do some demo production and pre-production work here in my home studio with some independent artists, and backing up songwriters has been something I've really grown to enjoy, and getting to record and play on their demos and things like that. So
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah, maybe also you can just talk a little bit about the different sections of Nashville like you are, but I just wanted to make people aware that Broadway is a big section of Nashville, but there's very different worlds in Nashville. The world as an artist, which is not on Broadway. The world as an artist who also plays cover shows and plays on Broadway. There's the whole singer, the whole songwriter, just songwriter. I'm going to Nashville to be a professional songwriter, and publishing companies and publishing deals. There's, the whole, just like the Bluebird, there's a billion venues that are listening rooms, songwriter listening rooms where people just go to listen to songwriters play acoustic and play their original songs. And that's what you're referring to. So go ahead. Sorry to.
Yeah. So some of the most enjoyable and gratifying work I've gotten to do is work with independent artists. Man, there's a fireball artist here in town called Steph McGuire that I've had the pleasure to play some live shows with and do some demo production for. And, you get into rooms with creative, just super skilled people, and there's so much payoff and could potential future payoff for projects like that are outside of that Broadway scene, if you will. And then going and playing at these writers rounds, and the next thing you know, you're actually writing material with some of these people who have publishing deals and things like that. So in addition to Broadway, there's the singer-songwriter community, which is tremendous here in Nashville. It's awesome, the creativity and just the dense population of songwriters that are here that feed the artists that you hear on the radio,
Yep.
And then there's, all the touring professionals. And so a lot of guys will strike a balance between doing professional touring, Broadway work, and singer-songwriter work. And or another side of that is, like my buddy Chris is a full-time session player.
Yep.
And just plays on the actual records that you hear on the radio and things like that. So
the bar being high. The session in Nashville.
That's in another stratosphere for the most part. I mean, because nothing will expose you like the recording studio. And if you, I'll tell, especially guitar players, if you think you got it, if you're not recording yourself, start. It's one of the best things you can do to work on your weaknesses. Listen, we all got them. I know I do. And so, recording has probably helped my playing as much as anything, because you may think you have good tempo until you get behind that click track, and that's when you're like, oh my God, I need to focus on my right hand to make sure I lock in with the rhythm section, and so there's little things like that inadvertently improve your play.
We all get away with live all the time.
you can get away with murder unless you're running tracks live that are on a
Right.
click track, and most of your pro level touring shows do that nowadays. But in all the clubs on Broadway, there aren't that many people running tracks just because you have so many different players in and out of those bands on
Yeah.
Broadway.
And plus, people are
But
asking for stuff on the fly. So,
yeah.
you know,
So, but yeah, in addition to Broadway, there's many other sectors and opportunity. There's just so many more opportunities to play in various scenarios that don't exist in most other cities in the country.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you again for being on and being the voice of Nashville for the
Oh
whole
man,
nation.
I don't know about all that. I'm still very green, but I'm super grateful to be here, and I really appreciate you having me on here. I've, as I've expressed many times, always enjoyed working with you, and hopefully we can play a show in Nashville soon.
Absolutely. So here's a little teaser, somebody's moving to Nashville. Again,
A little birdie told me something about
a little
that.
birdie. So you can, and you can also, whoever's listening and watching, get on that little birdie's Instagram, Tim Charron Band on Instagram. Send me a message. Once again, we love to, we're here to help. The whole reason why I do this podcast is because I want to help people with my experience in the music business and with people like Rhett's and other people's experience in the music business, so that I can have kind of the help and the resources and the connections. I can offer that to people that I wish that I had back in the day or even now. You know what I mean? So just trying to help people become more successful in whatever they're trying to do. So yeah, hit me up on Tim Charron Band on Instagram, and we'll do whatever topic you want, and we'll see you all in Nashville.